Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our special World Water Day presentation. We're really thrilled to have you today for a new type of presentation that we're going to be leading today. I'm here with a couple of my co-workers. So Chantal Lefebvre is our Natural Edge Regional Coordinator, and she's going to be our keynote speaker for this event. And my name is Monica Seidel. I'm the Communications and Fundraising Manager at Watersheds Canada, and I will be doing a bit of presenting and also helping with the forum at the end of today's event. In the chat and in the kind of tech side of things is Nicole Dubé, who is our Freshwater Health Coordinator. And so if you're having any problem with Zooms, if you have any questions that you maybe want to privately message someone, you can do that with Nicole, and then she will be able to feed us those questions for the forum at the end. You'll notice that your cameras and microphones are off during today's call. So if you have a question for the forum, we ask that you put it in the chat, either publicly or privately message to one of us. And we can follow up with any of you. If we don't get to your question, you can reach out to us by email using the ones that are on the screen. So as I mentioned, today is World Water Day. It is a day that we especially take time to stop and think about how dependent and interrelated we are with fresh water, especially in Canada. And as the spring weather starts to return, we can think about our connections with our local lakes and rivers, maybe things that we're looking forward to do this summer, and also thinking about all of the spring melt that's about to happen and how our shorelands might be responding to flooding and erosion that's happening this spring. So in light of this day especially, we have been posting special content on our social media. This entire week, there are different resources that we've been posting and will be posting, as well as some videos that you can share with some interesting facts. So whatever social media is your favorite platform, we are likely on there, and we encourage you to follow us and share some of those resources on your own page to help spread the word about the importance of protecting and enhancing our freshwater areas. One of the resources that is coming out this week is an article that Watersheds Canada was invited to contribute to an Innovating Canada campaign. So this is all about our water and different organizations and research that is happening to protect our freshwater areas and also our oceans. So Nicole will be putting a whole bunch of different links in the chat, including our social media handles, and also a link to this article that is talking about the importance of aquatic vegetation and all of the different benefits that it provides both people and wildlife and just our freshwater ecosystems in general, and how we don't often take this look underneath the water and think about these benefits that these aquatic plants have. So that's a fun little article that you can also share with your network or on your social media. And like I said, Nicole will be posting the direct link in the chat. If you want to see the entire Our Water campaign, which is done by an organization called Media Planet, then you can use the link that's on the screen here. For those on the call who are unfamiliar with Watersheds Canada, we are a national charity that is based in Eastern Ontario, though we deliver our programs nationwide. We work with community partners, local associations and volunteers, classrooms, libraries, businesses, and Indigenous groups to lead different freshwater stewardship and education programs. And you can see some of them represented on the screen here. And Chantal will also be talking about a number of them in her presentation. But we have shoreline plantings and shoreline assessments, and also fish habitat work. So really on the ground, shovels in the ground, working alongside those in the community who know the issues best. And we're coming alongside them with different resources and tested and true programs to really protect freshwater for decades to come. We also have a number of education programs that we deliver. One of them pictured in the bottom there is our nature discovery programming, which works in classrooms. And we're bringing different curriculum linked resources, videos, lesson plans to teachers and informal educators to help spark initial interest and initial interactions with local nature for populations of students that might not otherwise get those opportunities. So if you are curious to learn about any of our programs, stay tuned in case Chantel tells you about them in a bit. But if she doesn't cover any of them specifically, then you can go to watersheds.ca to learn more about our programs. As I mentioned, Watersheds Canada is a national charity, so we are registered, and we rely on many community partners, volunteers, and donation support from foundations, granting organizations, and individuals to make sure that our programs are able to keep running each year and also grow to more and more regions. So if you are already following us on social media or you get our monthly newsletter by email, then you would have seen a message this morning from Melissa Dakers, who is our Habitat and Stewardship Program Manager, and she was telling you about this photo, which is a fish habitat restoration project that took place on a cold water creek. And this was a particularly important area because cold water creeks require overhanging shade and vegetation to keep the water cold. And that is especially important for species like brook trout that need those cold waters to survive and to spawn. And a lot of these creek areas are seeing more development or maybe clearing of that vegetation. And so the waters are getting too warm for those species. So this was a community-led project that started in 2016. And Melissa went back this past fall, and as you can see, kind of peeking out over top of all of that vegetation are these newly planted trees. And so they will keep growing over many decades and provide that vital overhanging shade for the creek there, keeping it cold, and especially for the brook trout that live in this area. So if you would like to come alongside us and help more of these projects happen in your own community or in new provinces across the country, we encourage you to go sometime today and make your World Water Day gift at watersheds.ca/donate. And if you make your gift online, know that you will receive a full tax receipt for Canada for that donation. And we really thank you for coming alongside us. No matter how you do, whether it's a donation, the fact that you're here looking for more resources and programs, or whether you're actively on the ground with us, we really appreciate your support. So one of the programs that donations help make possible is the Freshwater Stewardship Community, which is the space that we are living in right now. It is an online community that launched in 2021 in response to the pandemic. So Watersheds Canada is very much about relationship building and coming alongside different community groups to lead action, which is a little harder when you're not allowed to see people in person. So we moved to an online community, and we've hosted over 29 webinars so far in the 2 and a bit years that we've been running. And a number of these webinars also have accompanying handouts. You can see a couple photos on the screen. They act as your one-stop shop resource for that topic. So it summarizes the presentation, key findings, and then has a very large section for each of them with your next steps. So what programs might you participate in to help address that issue? What research is being done on that topic? All sorts of important work that's being done is summarized in that handout. Those are all free. Those are all archived on our website. And if you visited the Freshwater Stewardship Community page recently, you would have noticed that we have everything sorted into categories now. So depending on the topic that you are most interested in learning more about, you can click on the image with the topic that you are interested in, and it will bring you information, all of the handouts, lesson plans, activity booklets, and webinar recordings will be under each category. And of course, we're only 3 months into the year, so we have lots of great programming still to go for the Freshwater Stewardship Community. April is a new mini-series, so we'll be featuring speakers specifically around community science or citizen science projects. And all of the registration is now open for the April mini-series. So we have speakers from the River Institute, Stream, Living Lakes Canada, the University of Prince Edward Island, the town of Stratford, the city of Charlottetown, and Birds Canada. As with almost all of our webinars, we will be recording them. So if you are not able to attend any of these in person, I encourage you still to register for them so that you get the recording and those summary handouts and any resources mentioned from the presentation right to your inbox. And you can register for all of those presentations now by visiting watersheds.ca/freshwater-stewardship. So today's presentation is a bit different than the normal ones that we have with the freshwater stewardship community. As you would have noticed when you registered in our little write-up for today, we were saying that we wanted to hear from you. We wanted to know what issues your community is facing when it comes to freshwater protection, what resources you might benefit from, and what we could do to come alongside you and help. So one of the ways that we can understand all of that information is through a survey, which is going to pop up on your screen through Zoom. It's a short survey, easy to answer. You just check the number that applies to you and your values for each question. We would ask that if it's at all possible, you do fill it in. It is very helpful for us for this project, especially as we report back to our funders to see the different issues that communities are facing. So if you could take 2 minutes to just fill it in right now, we're going to wait. We'll let you have time to fill it in, and then we'll keep going with Chantel's presentation. So I'm going to launch that now. You should see it pop up on your screen, and then I'll give you all a few minutes to fill it in. So thank you everyone so much for providing that feedback. It is going to be very valuable for us, and we'll share the results. So everyone should be able to see the poll now on their screen. So it looks like for most of these questions, we're trending towards the agree and strongly agree. Some of you are saying that you don't feel like you have the tools you need, which is question number 6, which is perfect because Chantel is about to talk about our freshwater toolkit and all of the resources available in there. Looks like most people are willing to speak to their peers about different freshwater issues, which is wonderful to see. Can sometimes be a difficult topic to cross with different people, so that's great to see people's willingness to do that. And kind of an even split of people who have helped lead or participate in a project to protect shoreline areas. So thank you everyone so much for contributing your answers to that poll. I understand that you'll probably have to close the box yourself. I have closed it on my end, but I think you'll have to close it on your screen as well so that you can see the full presentation again. All right, so now we are going to go to our presentation for today. So I'd like to introduce Chantel Lefebvre, who is our Natural Edge Regional Coordinator. Chantel has always loved nature and exploring the outdoors, and because of this, she explored a career that benefits what she loves the most. She graduated from Fleming College with an advanced diploma as an environmental technologist, and then obtained her BSc in environmental science from Trent University. Chantel has experience working at a conservation authority, land trust, and with municipal and provincial government agencies. In her free time, she enjoys kayaking, hiking, and swimming with her dogs.
Okay, thank you, Anna, for a wonderful introduction. So thank you everyone for joining me as well. As Monica said, my name is Chantel Lefebvre. I am the Natural Edge Regional Coordinator for Watersheds Canada. Today I'll be talking about sustaining our freshwater. So this is a 2-year pilot project for our Municipality of South Frontenac and the Municipality of Tweed that is helping different freshwater stakeholders take action to protect their shorelines and water health. The toolkits and resources developed through this project are widely applicable and in some cases are already available to other communities. And maybe we can launch this pilot in your community soon. Some common issues our lakes are facing all across the country. The big one being climate change, nutrient loading and shoreline development, erosion and pollution are a big concern, and habitat loss and recreational pressures are another concern for our lakes. So there's now just another quick question. for a poll, another pop-up on your screen. So what are the barriers you have encountered when trying to participate in stewardship projects, or when you try to get others to participate in your stewardship projects? So it looks like most of you have answered now. So it looks like it's divided in between two of the options, being costs and being not a priority, whereas as lack of time and lack of information and others is also quite evenly distributed, but cost and lack of information being the most likely cause of not being to participate in stewardship projects. So thank you for your feedback. So our first program in the Sustaining Our Freshwater project is the Planning for Our Shorelands program. Planning for Our Shorelands is a program that presents webinars and best practices resources to address common and very complex problems facing waterfront communities today, such as water quality, fish and wildlife, erosion, and flood risks. We are addressing this problem by promoting an ecosystem-based approach in land use decision-making, which is a strategy that integrates land, water, and living things to promote conservation and sustainable use in an equitable way. Planning for Our Shorelands helps educate municipal decision makers, waterfront property owners, and freshwater stakeholders as we identify successful tools used by municipalities to address a very common situation. That situation being traditionally development has done as close to the water as possible and has resulted in the continued hardening of our shorelands. Through this program, we have created many resources, including the ones I'm going to talk about today. So these include the Regulatory Guide to Achieving Environmental Net Gain at the Waterfront, Guide to Preparing a Shoreline Naturalization Planting Plan, the Resilient Shorelines Infographic, the Science Behind Vegetated Shoreland Buffers and Why That Ribbon of Life Matters So Much, and the Guide to Building Resilient Shorelines Manual. All these resources can be found on our website at watershedscanada.ca and under the resource tabs or at the link provided. So our first resource is the Guide to Preparing a Shoreline Naturalization Plan. This involves 4 different parts. The first part being drawing out your planting area, assessing the planting conditions, choosing the plants, and then a maintenance plan. So this helps landowners design a naturalization plan themselves. It walks you through those easy steps, and then we have resources available to help you design your plan as well. If you're lucky enough to be in one of our delivery areas, you can contact me at Natural Edge. That's watersheds.ca, and we can discuss if you're in our planting area. Also, your local conservation authority may have a planting plan that can help you, or your municipality also might provide a program. Some of those resources that we have on our website is the Native Plant Care Guide. So that will help with the maintenance of your naturalization plan. So it kind of just talks about how to take care of your plant babies in the first few years as they're getting established in their new home. We also have the wonderful native plant database that I use almost every day that talks about all native plants in our area based on your growing zone. So you can, on the left-hand side of that database, you can filter things to your growing zone, your specific growing zone, what province you're in, what type of plants you're interested in planting, and the conditions of your shoreline, including the moisture level and how much sunlight you get there. So that can help determine what kind of plants you want to plant there when you go to source those plants. So I talked about our Natural Edge program. So we offer a program in the Cataraqui and Quinte watersheds currently using our renaturalization starter kits. These kits include a free site visit from myself, a custom planting plan that I work with you to design, 50 native plants at the minimum, as well as any materials you need to take care of your new plants. You can contact me in the Natural Edge program at naturaledge@watersheds.ca. As we may also have delivery in other regions as we work with multiple partners to deliver this program. So you may not, if you're not in those watersheds, we still may be able to help you out. So our next resource is the Regulatory Guide to Achieving Environmental Net Gain at the Waterfront. So what is environmental net gain? It is the approach to ensure that development or redevelopment leaves the natural environment in a measurably improved state compared to the prior conditions. So in implementing environmental net gain as a municipality, the first step is to ensure that environmental net gain is clearly outlined in your official plan, your zoning bylaw, or any relevant policies. Your second step is upon receiving a development proposal, and ensure that the official plan or the zoning bylaw standards can be met. If the standards cannot be met due to existing constraints, require environmental net gain on the property as a condition for development to occur. And the last step is to follow up with that property to ensure that environmental gains are implemented and maintained. One example how a municipality does this is that they state if a proposal does not achieve the requirements of section 5.5 in their bylaw, an overall net gain of the shoreline vegetation shall be required. So that requires the residents to install and maintain a vegetated buffer to be able to do the development they wanted to on their property. So the graphic on the screen demonstrates how environmental net gain can be achieved on the waterfront. It includes improving redevelopment activities as far away as the water is possible. A permeable driveway is another example, and plant buffer covering more than 75% of that shoreline. Having that 75% covered ensures that you have environmental net gain. So we have this wonderful resilient shorelines infographic. So when making land use decisions, it's important to use ecosystem-based approach that recognizes the waterfront as an interconnected system rather than just focusing on the impacts or functions of that one area or that specific property. For this reason, we recommend the term shoreland be used in the context of waterfront management, as it is more than just a shoreline. It encompasses the entire full ecosystem that makes up the waterfront property and includes the 4 major ecological zones that you can see demonstrated on the graphic on the screen. The upland zone is the drier forested area, but that has better drainage. It helps slows down wind and cools the local surroundings, including your house. The riparian zone, also known as the ribbon of life, is typically the area that will become flooded during high water periods. It protects water quality and provides habitat to both terrestrial and aquatic life, and includes various plant types that absorb and access nutrients and pollutants. The shoreline is where land meets water. A mix of plants and types of foliage and woody debris helps hold together the shoreline and protects against erosion. It's kind of your first defense from any wave action or storms. The littoral zone extends from the water's edge to where sunlight can no longer reach the bottom of the water column. This is the area to home to about 90% of lake species, since this is the area of the lake that plants can photosynthesize. So there's a lot of energy in that area. This zone can vary in size based on the depth of the water and the water clarity. So we have a wonderful document called The Science of Vegetated Shorelands that is a review of literature, scientific literature and reports outlining why that ribbon of life matters so much and how it can affect water quality, erosion and shoreline stabilization, shoreline habitat, and climate change and water quality. I'll be going over these topics in the next few slides. So vegetated shoreline buffers protects water quality by slowing runoff and trapping pollutants. Runoff carries dissolved and sediment-bound pollutants. It's important to realize that pollutants can attach themselves to soil and can be moved that way as well, not just in water. So pollutants such as nutrients, phosphorus and nitrogen from septic systems or residential fertilizers, sediments, oils and chemicals that could be coming off of your car, for instance, pesticides that are used in lawn care or garden care, road salts from any nearby roads, and any fecal coliform bacteria from septic systems or animal waste can enter water quality. So eutrophication is the introduction of excess nutrients into a water body, especially from human-made sources, causing rates of algae growth to be increased. A natural buffer limits these nutrients by entering the water body by increasing infiltration and slowing runoff so that evaporation can increase. So that water and sediment-bound pollutants and nutrients then goes into the soil or is then evaporated away since they are slowed down from entering the water body with that mass amount of vegetation along your shoreline. So you can see in the graphic on the screen that the science says having a natural shoreline limits runoff by over 50%. So these are some great photos of a developed shoreline and a developed lake compared to a natural shoreline and natural lake. It shows how much clearer a lake can be, shows how better that and active that littoral zone is, since there is more photosynthesis being able to be achieved in a clearer lake that has a natural shoreline. So the science behind how a natural buffer protects erosion and shoreline stability is shrubs have a denser fibrous root systems that can hold smaller quantities and soil molecules together, whereas trees can hold together larger quantities of soil and their deep root systems. Grass, however, has a very shallow root system, as you can see on the left-hand side of this image. And then in high rainfall events, those more mowed grass can kind of act as I call them slip and slides, because as the rain can just kind of flow right over that grass much more easily, compared to when you have a mix of shrubs and trees that slow down that runoff and help with those root systems, help with the infiltration of water. So it can stop sediments from entering the water. And if it's just grass, it increases erosion, and that leads to a loss of waterfront property. Shorelands are actually a wonderful habitat. Over 70% of terrestrial wildlife globally will rely on riparian habitat at some point in their life cycle, compared to up to 90% of aquatic life species rely on that littoral zone. And in some cases, species like amphibians, so frogs and newts, rely on both of those throughout their life cycle. So they're very important habitat for many species. The last section in that document is climate change and water quality. So as rising temperatures and more severe storms become more common, scientists are predicting a reduction in lake ice cover duration during the winter, as well as just shorter winters in general. Increased blue-green algae outbreaks, as you can see pictured in the image to the right. Nutrient loading will become more of a severe issue because of those more severe storms. So we're just getting more runoff in general, and increased erosion and sedimentation because of those increased storms. So a lot of scientists concur that the most important and effective way to improve climate resilience for our shorelands is nature-based solutions. This includes the planting and maintenance of a vegetated shoreline buffer. A lot of scientists state that nature knows best and they will know how to take care of themselves. So when we implement these nature-based solutions, that they'll be able to be more resilient to climate change. So the purpose of nature-based solutions is to address societal changes while working with nature. This integrated approach helps combat climate change and biodiversity loss while supporting sustainable development. The benefits of nature-based solutions include supporting biodiversity, providing ecosystem services such as stormwater management, and slowing further warming through carbon sequestration and localized cooling effects. Some examples of nature-based solutions are a natural shoreline, urban trees and forests, restored and/or constructed wetlands, and rain gardens that it could be on your personal property or in municipal properties as well. So our next resource is the Guide to Building Resilient Shorelands Manual. So this guide helps waterfront property owners and decision planners make changes that will make the waterfront more resilient to climate change. The first recommendation is to protect against erosion. So some of the recommendations we have in there are you can install raised stairs down to the water shoreline, plant that deep-rooted vegetation, as I explained how that protects against erosion, and install vegetated riprap if necessary, as that is another barrier against erosion. Manage your stormwater runoff. So as I said, a nature-based solution is install a rain garden, so that helps with your stormwater. Divert any water away from homes and paved surfaces. So that helps with infiltration of that water, therefore less runoff. And use permeable materials in pathways, so gravel and things that water can seep through. And lastly, monitor invasive species. It's predicted with climate change that we're going to have more invasive species spreading. So monitoring any of those effects on your shoreline and removing if possible. So what are your next steps? So if you're a waterfront property owner, you can access our free watershed freshwater toolkit. So that can help protect and restore your local freshwater. You can understand the science and share that science with others, as knowledge is key to these issues. You can utilize the Natural Edge program, so you can book a site visit to restore your shoreline or access any of our free resources, including our native plant database. Book a presentation for your next community event. If you have an AGM coming up, we would love to be able to present to that. And lastly, you can participate in a shoreline assessment program, such as our Love Your Lake program. If you're a municipality, you can also access our free freshwater tool. This will advance and strengthen land use policies and regulations that protect your local freshwater, and utilize our Natural Edge program as well. So you can email us as we do community planting events and public demonstration sites, and then access our resource guides on that. And book a presentation for your council if you're interested. I would just like to thank our funders and thank you for attending. So our funders are EcoAction Community Funding Program and the Catherine and Maxwell Meighen Foundation.
We have time now for the forum. As we mentioned in our poster for this event, we want to hear from you. We do have a number of questions that we want to get through that people have submitted. So we will just get right into that. The first one was about tree planting programs and if there was support or resources for especially maintaining sensitive natural habitats in the public domain. So this depends on where you're located, but we recommend your first step being to contact your local conservation authority, or if you're in a region that doesn't have a CA, to contact the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. They would be able to help with anything, especially around sensitive areas. If we're talking about species at risk, then they would be the best first point contact. And later in those steps, if you are looking to restore a shoreland area and it's either a private property or a public area like a park or a boat launch, then you could reach out to organizations that have planting programs such as Watersheds Canada's Natural Edge program. Our next question was just around the legislation and enforcement that would be relevant to the application of manure and fertilizers to fields that are close to freshwater lakes in Ontario. So I will pass that one over to you, Chantal.
Thank you. Yeah, so the Ontario Ministry of Agricultural, Food and Rural Affairs, OMAFRA, regulates the application of manure and fertilizer in fields. So they work off of the Nutrient Management Act. And in that act, it does state that a person shall not apply fertilizers adjacent to a surface water if without a vegetated buffer zone. So without that ribbon of life, there are many subsections in there that outline how deep that buffer needs to be, depending on what they're spreading and how they are spreading it. So there's a few things in there, but if you have any more questions about that, I would contact OMAFRA. So that's the Ontario Ministry of Agricultural, Food and Rural Affairs. And they would be able to answer your questions about that. There's also a lot of information online.
Awesome, thanks, Chantal. And just a reminder for people, if you have questions, now is the time to put them in the chat. So we'll be going through the ones that are already there and have been sent to us. But if you have other questions, please make sure to send them. Now is the time to ask us and to try and help us understand what issues you are facing and what help you could benefit from. The next question we have is looking for advice on how a large governmental organization could be engaged to make a change in how it operates to better protect watersheds. So I'll pass it over to you first, Chantal.
Yeah. So municipal governments have a climate action plan. So only some of them have these plans developed. So those municipalities that have those plans are eligible for funding support through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to enact some stewardship projects to protect their watersheds. And then Watersheds Canada's planning for our Shorelines program works with those municipalities to offer support for watersheds protection that serve those climate action plans.
And just to build on that planning for shorelands item, if any of you on the call have been with Watersheds Canada for a few months now, you would know that we had a campaign in the fall to speak out in opposition to Bill 23, which we know is a really big concern for a lot of people on this call. So it's important, federally and provincially speaking, that if there are promises made, that they are shown in the funding. So putting the money matching with the priorities that the government levels say they have. So this is especially important for people like Watersheds Canada. We're a nonprofit and a charity, so we need to see those dollars going towards what people value, and that starts at the government level. So we're so thankful to everyone who did participate in that campaign in the fall. We ended up at the end of it with over 5,200 letters being sent to different municipal elected officials, which is fantastic and sends a really strong message. So we're very thankful to all of you that spoke up about that. And we continue to offer different resources, as Chantel's mentioned today, and different programs that help show people their first steps. So maybe they do want to protect their watershed health, but they don't know how, and they don't know what is a manageable first step. And so a number of our different programs are good entryways for municipalities to start with, and they can work through kind of our different programs or different resources depending on the issues that they're facing and also the scope of the staff availability they have. So if anyone is from your municipality on the call, or you know someone at your municipality that you'd like to forward this information to, please put them in contact with us. We would be happy to help them out as best as we can. We're a small team, but we do what we can, and we try to help as many places as possible, especially getting resources to people. That's sometimes often the first barrier they face. So we have a number of the guides that Chantel has mentioned will be sent to you after today's webinar. So you will have all of those in your inbox, and you are more than welcome to send them out to as many places as you want. We want people to have the tools they need to take action. So share them, post them, I don't know, print them, give them to people in their mailboxes. You find the ways to get it to the people that you think need it, and we are happy to share those with people. The next one is plant related, so I'll pass it to you, Chantel, but the person is looking for more information about how to reduce phosphate levels in a lake that is surrounded by agricultural land. And also if you have any suggestions for types of testing that can be done to monitor those phosphate levels.
Okay, yeah, so to reduce that nutrient loading of the phosphate and phosphorus, since phosphorus is the limiting nutrient in lakes that kind of produces those algae growth, agricultural lands need to have a wide vegetated buffer, ideally 30 meters. That can be hard to achieve sometimes since farmers like to farm their land, but we that vegetated buffer 30 meters is ideal. This slows the overland runoff and increases the infiltration, and then filters out those excess nutrients, as I was talking about in my presentation. So that buffer is really important to reduce those nutrient levels. In terms of the testing done for it, there are many private labs available in major cities. These do come at increased costs. And then those water samples do need to be processed in a short turnaround time, as phosphorus can be used up in a water sample before it's sent to a lab. So to have the most accuracy, it needs to have a fast turnaround time.
And I will just add to that, that the Natural Edge program does work on agricultural properties as well. So if you are someone who has an agricultural property, or you want to pass along the information, the Natural Edge program does do large scale plantings as well. So that can maybe be your first step, is booking a site visit and getting more information about how that process would go. Our next question is from someone in the Kawartha area, so kind of central Ontario. They're looking for more information about assessing landscaping and shoreline improvements and how to know which plants to use on a property.
Yeah, so you can contact our Natural Edge program. We do have delivery partners in your area, depending exactly where you're located. So if you contact me at naturaledge.watersheds.ca, I can put you in contact with appropriate delivery partner if you're interested in naturalizing specific properties. You could also utilize our guide to preparing our naturalization planting plan that I discussed earlier in this presentation to do a planting plan yourself. And then really using our native plant database is very helpful when determining what plants work on a property, as you can filter out exactly what your soil is like and the moisture levels and things like that to recommend the best plant types. So like I said, I use that daily because it just provides a lot of good information about plants and their requirements.
Awesome. Thanks, Chantal. Our next question is about road salt and just knowing what to do. So one resource that I can direct you to is a past webinar actually that we did in the freshwater stewardship community. It was with Lauren Lawson, who is a PhD student at U of T. And it was all about road salt. So it's called Salting Our Freshwater, if my memory is correct. And there's a handout that goes along with that too. So some action steps for individuals, municipalities, and also businesses. So how we can all take individual actions to protect the health of our larger lakes and freshwater areas. So I would recommend people check out that. Another resource that people can use, especially around like different sediments and pollutants that might be entering their freshwater body, is a resource called the Lake Protection Workbook, which is produced by the Lake Lakes Planning Committee. It's available on the resources page that Chantal had in her presentation and will also be in the follow-up email that we sent to everyone. And there are different resources in there as well. It's sort of a self-assessment report card, if you will, for different properties along the shoreline, and you can assess different issues, one of them being pollutants and sediments that might be going into the lake and different actions that you can take. If you're looking for a community science route around road salts and other sediments, we work alongside an organization called Water Rangers quite often. So they have water quality test kits that you can use to measure different parameters of a freshwater body and assess its health over time. And then you can contribute those findings to an open source database. So it could be another way to learn more about what's happening in your area, but also get people involved and caring about it so that they understand that their on-land actions have an impact on the freshwater. So that could be another easy entryway. Water Rangers is very fun and it's very easy to understand. They've made their kits very well. So that could be an opportunity for some community engagement, but also education and stewardship actions. We have some questions about invasive species. We are not the invasive species experts. We have hosted presentations with speakers from the Invasive Species Center who are the experts. So if you have specific questions about invasive species, I would really recommend you go there. They have very detailed documents about protocols and removal, identification, reporting, a whole bunch of community science database information there. So if you have invasive species in your area and you don't know what your first step is, or you don't even know if what you're looking at is an invasive or a native, I would recommend that you check out the Invasive Species Center and reach out to them. We also have a question about phosphate levels and just not knowing what's going on because the test results are taking a long time to get back. I don't know if you have anything to say to this question, Chantal. I have something, but I feel like I've talked a little bit, so I'll maybe let you have a chance.
Yeah, so when dealing with government of any kind, it can be a slow process, I find. So it's sad to hear that test results are taking a while to come back from you. But like I said before, if you're trying to reduce those phosphate levels, a natural edge would help with that. And in terms of monitoring, I don't know if the Water Rangers has anything that has to do with monitoring phosphate levels that may help get you faster results, but maybe less accurate. I don't know. Pass that back to you, Monica.
Yeah, Water Rangers wasn't the one I was going to say, but they might have resources available. So that's definitely a good spot to check out. I was actually going to talk about one of our presentations that we held last year. It was called The Ghost of Phosphorus Past, and it was about legacy phosphorus and how even if actions are being taken today to lower phosphate levels, there's still this legacy phosphorus problem. And so Lamissa Malik was our presenter for that one. She is a researcher, but I can't remember where right now, but she was doing research specifically about legacy phosphorus and had action steps in her presentation of what you could do depending on what had been happening in your area and different government level actions that you could take. So we can put that handout and webinar recording in the resources email that we sent to everyone. If you, it sounds like a couple people are kind of dealing with this issue on their lakes, so we can be sure to include that. And like I said, all of those webinars come with a one-page handout. So if you don't want to invest the full hour in the webinar, maybe you just check out that handout first. You can click on some of the hyperlinks within it and see different research and community science and government programs that you can participate in. I think that is all of the questions that I see in the chat. Some people are putting their suggestions in, things that have worked for them, which is really great. We encourage you to share tips and tricks of things that have worked, especially as we were all troubleshooting through the pandemic, trying to figure out how we could still connect with people and still take action in a safe way. So it looks like some people are suggesting door-to-door drop-off. So maybe having volunteers assemble packages with relevant information, and then they're dropping them off to all the lake residents. This can be especially important over the past few years. There's been a big turn, oh dear, don't know what the word is. There's been turnover. Thank you. There's been a big turnover of lakeside residents who were moving during the pandemic. So it could be a really great opportunity to reach these new residents and provide them with some really critical information as they start getting adjusted to living by the waterfront when maybe they've never done that before. So door-to-door drop-offs can be really great. Presentations can also be really valuable at community fairs or annual general meetings. Depending on where you are located, you are welcome to reach out to Watersheds Canada and possibly we can give a presentation. So that can be a good first step. I'll give people the last 2 minutes or so if you have any other burning questions or things that you want to share, resources that have worked for you. You can put them in the chat. I see some resource sharing going on in there, which is awesome. And if people think of questions or if they have feedback of things that they would like resources on, then you can always send us an email. I'll just drop my email in the chat right now and Chantel's. So if you think of any other questions, or maybe you have a site specific question that you don't want to talk about on the Zoom call, but you have a property question, you can always message either of us individually. And we can provide you with some feedback or some suggestions. Like Chantel said, she's just about to go into site visit season. So she'll be visiting lots of waterfront property owners. And so this is the time, if you have questions and you want to take action, you can reach out to her to book that site visit. Or if it's not with us, then maybe it's with one of our natural edge delivery partners. I don't see any other questions. So thank you everyone so much for joining us on World Water Day today. We're really appreciative of your time, of you giving us your feedback in the polls and in the comments. And you can look forward to more presentations like this, trying to figure out what tools people need. So if you can't think of anything today, but you have to think over it over the coming weeks, we'll be having another session like this. And so you can bring your ideas to that one and maybe invite some friends, family, neighbors, anyone you think that could benefit from this information. You're our link to on the ground action. So there's only a few of us, but there's lots of you and you know what's going on in your community and how to reach those people. So please share our information widely. And you can expect an email probably early next week from us with a recording from today, as well as some of the resources that people have asked for, and all of the guides that Chantal mentioned during the presentation. We'll have all that in a nice email for you, which you are also welcome to forward around to people who maybe weren't able to attend, and then they can access everything in one spot. I think that's everything. Chantal, did I forget anything?
No, don't think so.
Okay, well, awesome. Thank you again, everyone, so much, and enjoy the rest of your World Water Day.
Thank you everyone for attending.